Hi everybody. In this lecture we're going to talk about nonlinear dynamics, both stability and bifurcations. So in this climate model we'll be talking about many different differential equations that model the evolution in time of various aspects of the climate. The simplest models take the form of ordinary differential equations, where one or a few variables vary in time. The model that specifies how they vary gives the instantaneous rate of change as a function of their current values. And so the general form of an ODE, ordinary differential equation like that, takes this form. The derivative of a function x at time t is some function of the value of x at time t. So we'll only be talking in this lecture about autonomous differential equations where there is no explicit time dependence in this function. And so we'll also write x dot for this derivative with respect to time. So x dot at time t is basically the rate of change of the unknown function x at that time, and it's given by f of the value of x that we are at that particular moment in time. And we always need an initial condition. X at time t equals 0 is some initial value x naught. In this lecture we're going to look at qualitative aspects of these differential equations. How do they behave in time? But to start off, we're actually going to solve them numerically using the simplest possible method, which is the forward Euler method, which just takes small time steps, just like we did for ray tracing. So we're going to approximate the derivative with this forward difference, the value of x at the next time step minus the value of x at the current time step divided by h. So x is the unknown variable here, the unknown function. We want to approximate its value at the next time step. If we rearrange this equation, we get that x at time t plus h is basically x at time t plus h times the value of the function f, the right-hand side of the differential equation, evaluated at the current point. This is, of course, an approximation. There are much better approximations that we can use via the differentialequations.jl package. There's a Julia library for solving differential equations, which has many routines available. So basically, although in this lecture we're going to be using our own code, often for solving such problems, really you want to use a library. And we'll see how to do that later. Let's look at a particular differential equation. This is going to model the growth of a population of bacteria, for example. So initially, we might expect that the bacteria will grow with a particular growth rate lambda just because they keep reproducing. But actually, if there's a limited amount of food, which there always is in practice, then there'll be a maximum population k, which the medium can sustain. So a simple model of this is x dot equals lambda times x. Lambda is the initial growth rate, but then multiplied by k minus x. So that means that the growth rate will be approximately lambda when x is small, but the growth rate will decrease as x increases. This equation is called the logistic differential equation, although the word logistic here seems not very helpful to me. We're interested in what is the qualitative behavior of this system. So let's simulate a simple version of it. We're going to rescale time and space, and we get this simple version where we just have x times 1 minus x as our function f. So I'm going to call that logistic of x and just define it in Julia. And then I'll use the Euler method to solve this equation. We're just stepping forwards in time with a fixed time step h. So here I'm saying that the initial condition is 0.5, the value of h, the time step size, is 0.01, and we're going to finish at time 20. And I'll store that in results, and we see that that gives me a vector of times at which I'm evaluating the approximate solution, and the solution itself, x, is another vector of floating point numbers. So let's plot x as a function of time. We see the initial condition at time 0 is 0.5, and then the value of x increases over time and converges to 1.0, and then just seems to stay there for the rest of the simulation. 1.0 is what we call a fixed point or stationary point of this differential equation, which is a value of x such that if I start there, I remain there for all time. Why is that? Because the derivative x dot when I'm at 1.0 is given by f of x, which is x times 1 minus x, and so when x is 1, I get that the derivative is 0. And so once I'm there, the derivative is 0, so I never move away, and I stay there for all time. So the qualitative behavior is that asymptotically, as t goes to infinity at long times, I converge to a fixed point and I remain there. Is that the only kind of qualitative asymptotic behavior that we can have? Well, actually no. Let's look at what happens for other initial conditions. If I start exactly at 0, I remain at 0. So that's another fixed point. But now let me move slightly away from 0. I'm going to start with 0.001 as my initial condition for x. And we see that, well, then the derivative is always positive, and so we're moving away from 0, and eventually we lift off and we actually converge again to 1 at long times. And as we increase x, the initial value of x, more and more, we keep on doing that. We just increase and converge to 1. What about if I start above 1? Well, it turns out that I also then decrease and converge to 1 again. But if I start with negative values of x, then something different happens, and I actually move away from 0 but in the negative direction, and I converge to minus infinity. And so these are actually the only possibilities for qualitative behavior in one dimension. Either I converge to a fixed point or I diverge to plus or minus infinity. Okay, so to get an overview of the behavior, we can just plot all of these on the same graph. And so we see that indeed, if I start close to 1, I converge to 1. If I start close to 0, I move away from 0. And so we call 1 a stable fixed point and 0 an unstable fixed point. We can actually calculate whether a fixed point is stable or unstable by using the derivative of the function f, the right-hand side, at that fixed point. And that's what we have used later on. So fixed points or stationary points are these values x star, these special values where f of x star equals 0, because then the derivative at those places is 0, and so we will remain there. Solving this equation is in general not possible to do analytically, and so instead we have to use numerical methods called root finding algorithms, and one of the classic ones is the Newton method, for example. In this particular notebook, I'm using a package called roots.jl that has various root finding methods implemented, but you can also come to the 18330 course next semester where we will look in detail at these very interesting and useful algorithms. Let's think again about this qualitative behavior. Can I actually extract the qualitative behavior of these equations without really solving them using one of these ODE solvers? So this is the qualitative approach to dynamical systems or nonlinear dynamics. We're going to take a different point of view. Instead of plotting x as a function of time, we'll just remove time from the picture in a way, and we'll draw the state space or phase space. That's the collection of all possible states of the system. In this case, since we only have one dependent variable, x, the collection of all possible states is the whole real line. And so the idea is that at each possible value of x, the differential equation will tell us in which direction are we moving. So what we're going to do is draw a vector field that shows an arrow at each place, at each point, which tells us in which direction the system will move. So here's an example. This is for our logistic ODE, and we see here are the two fixed points, and I have drawn arrows pointing upwards or downwards according to whether the differential equation tells us that at that value of x, I will decrease or increase as time goes on. And so what you can see is that for any value of x above 1, I'm moving downwards towards 1. For any value of x between 0 and 1, I'm moving upwards again towards 1. And so we can just see visually from this picture that 1 is a stable fixed point. And I've coded that with this gray circle. Similarly, if you start close to 0 and positive, you move upwards. If you start close to 0 and negative, you move downwards. And so 0 is an unstable fixed point since everybody moves away from 0. So that's the idea. We're going to use these qualitative pictures to understand the dynamics. So now let's suppose that we have an extra feature, which is a parameter mu in our ordinary differential equation. So our differential equation now looks like this. X dot is no longer just f of x, but f has a parameter mu. It depends on a parameter mu. So an example of this is x dot equals mu plus x squared. So you see that if I change mu, I actually have different differential equations. And so the question is, how is the qualitative behavior of the system going to change as I vary mu? We can see that by, again, plotting the vector field, but now I have this parameter mu that I'm going to change. So as I change this parameter, what happens to the vector field? Well, it turns out that the region in which the vector field points downwards actually decreases as I increase this value of the parameter, and at some particular value of the parameter, that region shrinks to 0 and then disappears. That value where it disappears is exactly 0 in this particular system. Above 0, there are no longer any fixed points actually. You can see that since x squared is always non-negative And if mu is positive, then this result will always be positive, and so the vector field will always point vertically. So there are no longer any fixed points. And so that's qualitatively different global behavior of the system compared to a value of mu which is negative, where there are these two fixed points. So we can summarize the whole behavior of the system for all values of mu by stacking all of these vector fields together next to each other. So that's what I've done here, and this is basically what's called the bifurcation diagram of the system. So you can see that we have these two fixed points that move closer together as I increase the value of mu. So let's just take a moment to understand what this picture is showing. For each fixed value of mu does not change over time. Mu is fixed, and I'm running a simulation from some initial condition. So for example, if I start with mu minus 1 and I start with x at 1.5, the dynamics will push x more and more positive and it will escape to infinity. Whereas if I start with mu equals minus 1 but x equals 0.8, then the system will move downwards and will converge to a fixed point, a stable fixed point around minus 1. If I now run a new simulation with a different value of mu, I will get different results, and in fact qualitatively different behavior if mu is bigger than 0. So we say that there is a critical value of mu sub c equals 0, and that is where a bifurcation happens. That is a bifurcation point, which means that the system changes behavior qualitatively on either side of that value of the parameter mu. This particular bifurcation is called a saddle node or fold bifurcation, where two fixed points, one stable and one unstable, move together and annihilate each other. Now let's look at a more interesting example. We have this differential equation, x dot equals mu plus x minus x cubed. And we want to know what is the qualitative behavior of the system. So we're going to, again, look for fixed points and try and understand the dynamics of the system without trying to actually solve the dynamics explicitly. So drawing the same bifurcation diagram, we get this picture. What do we see? Well, for small values of mu, there's a single stable fixed point. If you're above the fixed point, you converge to it from above, you move downwards. If you're below the fixed point, you move upwards and converge to it. And that fixed point moves as mu changes, as mu increases. Similarly, for large values of mu, there's a single fixed point up here, and the same thing happens. But there's this region of mu between about minus 0.4 and plus 0.4, where there are actually three fixed points, one stable, one unstable, and another stable one. And they are coexisting. So for that value of mu, for example, 0, there are these three fixed points that coexist, and which fixed point you converge to depends where you start. So if you start close to this upper fixed point, you converge to it. If you start close to the lower fixed point, you converge to that one. And in between, there's this unstable fixed point, so you never converge there. You always move away from it. But if you were to start exactly at that fixed point, you would stay there. Usually you can't actually start exactly at the fixed point if you're using floating point arithmetic. So what does that mean for the qualitative behavior of the system? This system has what is called bistability. We have two coexisting stable fixed points, so the system can exist in these two different states. Usually when we draw a bifurcation diagram, in fact, we only draw the fixed points. We don't draw the vector field. Again, we're using the convention that stable fixed points are black, unstable fixed points are green, stable fixed points are black. And so there are three what are called branches in this picture. There are three curves of fixed points, smooth curves, where the fixed point moves as the value of the parameter mu changes. So these three branches connect up together in these two fold or saddle node bifurcations. But the way we should understand this picture is that actually, well, if I start somewhere other than at the fixed point, I'm going to converge to a stable fixed point. So now let's think about what happens if I now let the parameter mu vary, but I'm going to let it vary or change very slowly. So suppose we start over here. I'm starting with mu at about minus 1.5 and x at about minus 2. Well, x will converge pretty quickly towards this fixed point at that value of mu. But now I'm letting mu vary slowly. So x will converge there quickly and then mu will gradually change. But if mu changes a bit, then x is no longer at the new fixed point for that value of mu. And so it will actually converge towards that fixed point. And now I change mu again and x will converge towards the fixed point. And that carries on And so basically what happens is the value of x will follow this branch of fixed points. Even though, strictly speaking, these are no longer fixed points because mu is actually moving slowly in time, the effective dynamics will be that x will track this branch of fixed points of the system with mu fixed. But the problem is, what will happen once we get to this bifurcation point? So there's this bifurcation point that you can't quite see here. Maybe we can see it better in this picture. So there's a bifurcation point in here, and mu is still increasing. So what will happen when I increase mu beyond the place where there exist fixed points over here? So now mu is over here, say 0.5, and x is around this value because it was tracking this branch. And now what will happen is we know that the vector field, let's go back to the vector field, at mu equals 0.5, it just points straight up. And so actually what the system will do is just zoom up here, following the vector field, and it will converge to this other fixed point up here. And so what we will see in the actual dynamics is that the system seems to jump from this lower branch to the upper branch very quickly. And then if we continue to increase mu, now it will follow this upper branch of fixed points. If, on the other hand, we decreased mu, it will do the same thing that it did before. It will track this branch of fixed points until it reaches this bifurcation point, and then it will jump down to the lower branch. Not jump, it will very quickly follow this vector field down to the lower branch. So you see that this bistability means that for these intermediate values of mu, where these two fixed points coexist, where there is bistability, which fixed point the system will be in actually depends on the history, depends on where we started the dynamics from. This loop where we're following different branches during the time that we're between these two critical values of mu, that is called a hysteresis loop. And we'll see examples of that in real climate models in the future. Another scientific system where this kind of behavior occurs is genetic switches in biology. So this bistability is exactly what allows genetic switches to be in two different states, on and off.